I want to start today's video by wishing Pitso Msimane a speedy recovery. There's been reports that he's been admitted to hospital in UAE after having some discomfort in his chest. So I hope this is nothing serious and that he can recover quick. Now, on to Kaizer Chiefs news. Gonzalez has also been threatened that his days are numbered at Kaizer Chiefs. Also, we're going to talk about what David Zulu thinks about Kaizer Chiefs' philosophy and what he thinks has gone wrong at Kaizer Chiefs. He shares some interesting points. Some I agree with and some I don't actually agree with. Hello and welcome to Kosi Nation Fan TV. I am Pelo, I am your host, and this is where fans meet and talk about Kaizer Chiefs. Amakusi Football Club. Let's start with Gonzalez. We know that he's been signed by Kaizer Chiefs on a loan. It's not a permanent deal, but it's a 1-year loan. It doesn't have any obligation to buy. It doesn't have anything attached to it. So how has he done since coming to Kaizer Chiefs? Well, underwhelming because he hasn't scored a goal, hasn't done much, and he hasn't created anything of any note. But once again, what is causing this? I will say that obviously there are some things that you look at him, some people will say, oh, he looks slow, he looks sluggish. But there are quality strikers who are not quick, who are not running at 120 kilometers per hour, but are still effective. Take, for example, Olivier Giroud, a World Cup winning striker. As much as he had Mbappe in his team, but he was still shining in the group stages in Russia, and is one of the reasons why France ended up winning the World Cup in 2018, and also it did contribute in the 2022 World Cup final. So it doesn't mean speed is the only key ingredient that is needed by the striker in order for them to be successful. Take Ranga, for example. He was performing for Marumo Gallants. He was performing in the tournament in Africa with Marumo Gallants. I forgot the name of the tournament. Anyway, CAF Confederations Cup. He was performing really well, scoring goals, but he's not a quick striker. He's just a physically imposing striker who's in the box and who attacks the ball and he scores. But how is it done at Kaizer Chiefs? He has not done anything at all. He has not scored any goal. So are you honestly telling me that the problem is the strikers that we signed? Because even Pulemont, he was performing at Arrows, was doing all these nice things, making an impact in his team, and we've been chasing after him for the past 2 seasons, and we did not sign him. Comes to Kaizer Chiefs, now he looks average. So you have all these players that are coming at Kaizer Chiefs, looking very great in their teams, and then they come to Chiefs, and then they are not playing great. So you're going to tell me that everyone else is a problem, but not the team itself? There must be a problem with the team, obviously. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, of course, that's just the team. That's just the only problem. You must also remember, he's coming from South America. I know there's this thing of saying that players, if you're a foreign player, you should hit the ground running. But there's also an adjustment period. Players need time to adjust. I always say, look at how the elite coaches treat players when they are changing continents and coming to play for different teams. Even sometimes, even if they are not changing continents, even if they're just moving from the team in the same league to another. Classic example is Jack Grealish. The first season he gets signed by 100 million, and then Pep doesn't play him as much. People start talking, overrated Jack Grealish. And then he's eased in slowly but surely. Then last season he's starting for Manchester City in the league and in every way possible. I remember the game against Liverpool. He was tracking back, marking. There was a tackle he made on Salah, and I was so hurt because that would have changed the game. That is a winger, but now under Pep he's being taught to even defend, get used to playing in that system. So if star players need some time, like star players like Babu Jack Grealish, who single-handedly saved Aston Villa from getting relegated, needed some time to adjust to Pep Guardiola's system, why are we going to say we're going to give Gonzalez 2 months and then after that we're threatening him that if he doesn't do better, he will be released? It once again goes back to what I've always said, that the problem that we end up having is the fact that you sign these players for them to come and solve all your problems. You are not signing them to an already existing structure and a team that plays well, and then you can ease them into the team. And because of that, it's a problem. Otherwise, if you are keeping things simple and depending on players playing like Carlo Ancelotti, who has said, even in his book, that what he does with the players that he has, he will just give them freedom to do what they want with the ball, and then they do that. You look at the players like the Vinicius and the Benzemas. There is structure, there is a way that he wants the team to play, but he's also giving them flexibility. So there is that balance that is making between his tactics and also knowing that the players themselves must be given freedom and responsibility to do the things that they want to do. But with Kaizer Chiefs, especially under Ntsegi, we didn't see none of that. We didn't see whether he wanted to do what with the players, because we clearly saw that with players like the Castillos, they were played as wingers, although we all know that he's a midfielder. He was played so wide, and then at the end of the day, he was not effective. So we were going to also threaten him and say, hey, Castillo, you are not scoring goals, or you are not creating enough chances. How is he going to create chances if you are keeping him wide? And that's not necessarily his strong suit. I'm not obviously saying that Gonzalez is perfect, but I'm just saying that maybe we should be giving players more time to adapt and adjust to the club. Otherwise, we'll keep on just getting players, and then they'll leave Sebe Zinkomo while they arrived being star players. There are a lot of players who have died at Kaizer Chiefs, and yet to keep on pointing fingers at Mamelodi Sundowns and say they are killing players. At least, well, it's not better than what Chiefs is doing, but at least when you go to Sundowns, you say they are killed by competition and they can't get into the team because the players who are ahead of them are playing much better than them. But with Kaizer Chiefs, it's like you bring him in, there's no plan of how you want this player to perform or to do in the field of play, and as a result of that, they end up not doing the things that they're supposed to do, and then Babe Zinkomo, and then that's how we kill the players themselves. Speaking of other things that don't need to be killed, it's my vibe. Please don't kill my vibe by not liking the video or subscribing to the channel. Subscribing and liking the video, all these things help me reach more people like you. And just, yeah. Let's talk about David Zulu and what he thinks has gone wrong with Kaizer Chiefs. He says that Chiefs has lost its culture and identity. I think we all know this, and there's no need to even talk about this. But this is where I tend to disagree with him. Because he says that Kaizer Chiefs used to produce good players and mix those good players with other players that they signed. Here's my take on this. Chiefs still produces good players. I mean, Tutuzi Shabalala is the recent one. But we also look at Mushini from the development. Samgelo Zwane. Just those three quality players who all came out, well, two of them at least, came up last season. And then Nkosiphile Ngcobo came up with Abo Mashiane. He came up with the other players like Abo Hatebe. So there is still players being produced, quality players being produced at Kaizer Chiefs. The difference between what is happening now and what was happening back then is the fact that back then those players were given a chance, but what made it easy to give those players a chance is because the senior team was performing well. And then these other players who are coming from development were easily integrated into the senior team because the senior team was already playing better. But now you take Nkosiphile Ngcobo and then it becomes our hope in the senior team. And then when he gets injured or he doesn't perform for 2 games, Use Nkomo, Usebegwe Penchini, and is now being protected. And the moment you do that, it looks like these players are now average. Kanti, he's just carrying the team on his own. In the Baxter season, that season before Baxter came, Nkosiphile Ngcobo was carrying Chiefs on his back. Like in that Kev season, he was carrying his Chiefs on his back, which is the same thing with Mtutuzi Shabalala last season. He was carrying Chiefs on his own, and then he ended up being penned out, and then he was no longer performing, and then Wabangati, these boys are just average, they are not good enough, blah blah blah. Quality is still there. Coaching and integration with the senior team is horrible. The other thing is that he talks about that there will be no consistency in the team if you play according to opponent's plan. And this is one thing that we said a lot just about the recent coach Umlifintsegi, the fact that he always looked like he's scared. Like the way that he sets up his team, he will play a defensive right back instead of playing a more offensive option like Frosler or Solomons. But instead, he will play who? He will play Kunika. And then he plays Uhlanti, although you can see that he's not giving you anything going forward. So take a risk. Play someone like Mashian, at least who's going to offer you going forward. I know he's not going to offer you much defensively, but at least if you think about it, teams are defending against Chiefs, like the game we played against Supersport. Supersport was just sitting deep. There was no need to continue playing 4 defensive players at the back. Add someone offensive to do something in the team. Yes, he might have not been even in the match day squad, but that's exactly my point. And I'm not saying this that I'm advocating for Mashiane, because another player who could have played on that game was Dove was available. But now I'm saying at this point, since Dove is injured and Hland is not giving us much. So there are a lot of fears that our team has, and we end up fearing teams and defending against teams that we should actually be attacking against. So that is why we are always just looking at other teams and how they play, and we're trying to see how we can beat them. Instead of saying, this is how we play, we're not going to change how we play for anyone. And then we know that these are their weaknesses. We can exploit them like this. But the initial plan is, this is how we play. But each Chiefs, it's like, okay, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can we set up such that we overcome their weaknesses and we're also strong against their strengths? That is step number 2. Step number 1 of how do we play and how can we tweak our own system then to overcome them. Tina, we're always approaching games with fear, and that is exactly why I think Chiefs. I agree with David Zulu when he says we are not we are not consistent. So I don't know what you think about this. What do you think is actually wrong with how Chiefs is playing right now? Please do let me know down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, equals al pelumoya.